everyone. So this is the third file on the classroom questions, and with this we'll complete the remaining classroom questions. So before getting into this question, that is question number 29, we have to do a theory, okay, because I did not explain the theory in the previous lectures, and I added this topic later on in the third file. Okay, so the theory is like comparison of electric force and magnetic force. So comparison of electric force and magnetic force. Okay, now you see, we already know that when two charges are separated by a distance, say r, then the electric force acting on them is k q1 q2 by r square. K is the Coulomb's constant, whose value is 9 into, actually it is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, and that is 9 into 10 to the power 9 nm square per c square. Clear? Now magnetic force between two moving charges is given by, so again we have Coulomb's law in magnetism. This is mu naught by 4 pi. Here also we write down this mu naught by 4 pi as k, but the value of k here is mu naught by 4 pi. In magnetism, the value is mu naught by 4 pi. m1 m2 divided by r square. Now you will find this relation in the next chapter actually. Okay. So m1 m2 by r square, where m1 m2 are the pole strengths. Now magnetic moment, you see this pole strength can be written in terms of pole strength. The unit is ampere meter. It can be written in terms of your current into length. Okay, like if you extend it, like magnetic moment, what is the relation? Magnetic moment is current into cross section area, and magnetic moment in terms of pole strength is pole strength into dipole length. Now for simplicity, you can consider this as L and work out the mathematics, or we can consider as twice L also. Anyway, we'll see it in the next chapter. So here, like pole strength M equal to IA divided by 2L. 2L is the length, okay. 2L is the length. It's not like double of the length. We take it as 2L for convenience of derivation. So current into cross section area divided by length, it will finally leave behind current into length. Okay, so that's what we get this. So in terms of I know you might be having confusion with this two thing. Okay, how a by twice L is becoming L. This is actually cross section area divided by length. Only length survives in that case. Okay, we'll see it later on anyway in the next chapter, magnetism and matter. Now Fm can be written as mu naught by 4 pi m1 m2. Okay, so pole strength m1 can be written as I1 L1, m2 can be written as I2 L2 divided by r square. Now you see mu naught by 4 pi. Now I1 can be written as Q1 by T1, Q1 by T1 into L1, and Q2 by T2 into L2. Okay, current equal to charge by time divided by r square. Now this L1 by T1 is V1, L2 by T2 is V2. So this is mu naught by 4 pi Q1 Q2 V1 V2 divided by r square. Okay, so this is the final relation for magnetic force. Therefore electric force divided by magnetic force gives you, electric force is like k Q1 Q2 by r square, and magnetic force is in the denominator you will have mu naught by 4 pi Q1 Q2 V1 V2 divided by r square. I am writing down this mu naught by 4 pi entirely in the denominator. Now these charges will get cancelled, Q1 Q2 will get cancelled, and r will also get cancelled. R square cancels, Q1 Q2 cancels. So what remains is K divided by mu naught by 4 pi V1 V2. Now this can also be simplified, like K value is 9 into 10 to the power 9, mu naught by 4 pi value is 10 to the power minus 7, V1 by, sorry, V1 V2. Okay, so this will get you like 9 into 10 to the power 16 divided by V1 V2. So this is your final relation for the ratio of magnetic force by electric force to magnetic force. So in the present question, we'll apply this. So if two protons are moving with a speed days parallel to each other, then find the ratio of the electrostatic and magnetic force between them. Okay, so the protons are moving. So when they are moving, of course, they'll have electric field, electric force will be there, and also magnetic force will be there, because when they move, when protons charged particles move, they will create a magnetic field as well. So without going into much details, let's get into the relation directly. So Fe by Fm is equal to K by mu naught by 4 pi V1 V2. So K is like 9 into 10 to the power 9 divided by 10 to the power minus 7, mu naught by 4 pi is 10 to the power minus 7. V1 V2 both are same here, both the charges are moving with the same speed, therefore 4.5 into 10 to the power 5 whole square we can write, right? So on doing the calculation, you will get this as 4.4 into 10 to the power 5. 4.4 into 10 to the power 5. Okay, option number 1 is the answer. Next, question 30. So you have a plane of a rectangular loop. The sides, this is the breadth and this is the length. Okay, they are parallel to uniform magnetic field, and the value of field strength is given 1.5 into 10 to the power minus 2 Tesla. A current of 10 ampere is passing through the loop, and if the side of the length is normal and the side of the if the side of the length, this is normal, and side of the length 0.05 meter is parallel to the lines of the induction, then what is the torque acting? So you can consider the loop, or you can consider the coil to be in this manner, and here this particular length is like, the shorter one is 0.05 meter and this longer one is 0.08 meter. Now it is said that the longer one is perpendicular to the magnetic field. Say the magnetic field is going from left to right, and now it is pretty obvious that the shorter length is parallel to the magnetic field and the longer length is perpendicular to the magnetic field. So the relation that we'll apply here is tau equal to NIAB cos, NIAB sin theta. It was number of turns not mentioned, so it is 1, and IAB, and what is the angle between the unit vector, or you can say the area vector of the plane, this plane, right, with the field, it is 90 degree. You see, area vector is coming perpendicularly outside the page, okay, and field is on the plane of the page and going from left to right, they are perpendicular to each other. So IAB sin 90 you can write. Angle between area vector and B vector is 90 degree. So if you put the values, current is 10 ampere, area is like 5 into, this is, you see, 0.08 meter, it is 8 into 10 to the power minus 2. This is 5 into 10 to the power minus 2. So we're writing 5 into 8 into 10 to the power minus 4 directly. Clear? Into, what is the value of the field? 1.5 into 10 to the power minus 2. So this gives you, on calculation, this will get you 6 into 10 to the power minus 4 Newton meter. So this is the result. Option number D. Next, question number 31. This was question number 30. 29, 31. You have two straight wires, they are parallel to each other, carrying at a distance twice r between them. Now if the wires carry current I in the same direction, the strength of the magnetic field at a distance r in between the two wires, but this will be zero straight way. You see, this can be very clearly understood. You have these two straight wires, they are at a distance. This distance is 2r. Now both are carrying current in the same direction, right? So I. This is the first wire, number 1, number 2. Now field due to the first wire, if you apply the Fleming's, not Fleming's rule, it's the right hand rule, right hand thumb rule. Thumb pointing along the current this way, then the fingers will curl inside. You'll see the finger will curl inside the page on the right side of this wire. Therefore, at a distance r, which is exactly halfway between them, right? Let's say this point is O. Okay, so at this midpoint we have to find out. So like B1 will be due to the first wire, the field will be inside, right? Now here you see on the second wire, if you put the thumb along the direction of the current, then you'll see the magnetic fields again are in this direction. So in this space the field is coming outside the page, in this space the field is going inside the page. Yeah, for this first wire also, in this space the field is coming outside the page, and in this space the field is going inside the page. Therefore, due to the second wire, the magnetic field will be dot. Okay, so B1 is coming out and B2 is going in, and since they are carrying the same current, and since you are finding out the field at equal distance from both of them, okay, in between them, therefore the fields will cancel each other and the net field will be 0. Okay, so that is question number 31. 32, again here in the diagram you can see that the currents are in the same direction. Of course the current value is different now. Now it is given the two wires are at a distance 10 centimeter from each other. Now you have a third wire in between whose distance is x, and so if it is at a distance x from the wire P, then this wire, the middle wire, is at a distance 0.1 minus x, or you can also write down 10 minus x. Okay, anyway it won't matter even if you don't convert the relation, don't convert the value. So you have to find out where would you put a third wire so the magnetic field, or I would say so that the wire experience no force due to the two wires. That means you can say that the net field, the position at which you place the third wire, there the net field should be 0. Okay, so in that case field due to the first wire and field due to the second wire has to be equal. So if you consider, okay, it was already given as M, and in my diagram I took that as Q. Anyway, so due to the wire P, the magnetic field would be, say B1 would be mu naught by 4 pi 2 I1, or let's put down the value directly. What is the value of I1? Okay, we'll do it later. Let's write down the relation in general first. The field due to an infinite long wire is mu naught by 4 pi 2I by, let's take that as x. Okay, the distance, perpendicular distance of that point from the wire. So B1 will be mu naught by 4 pi 2I1 by x. B2 will be mu naught by 4 pi 2I2 by 10 minus x. In the solution I shared previously, there I might have converted and wrote down the value. Or should we convert it? Let's do it by conversion then. Or without conversion also, I guess it will get you the same result. Anyway, let's do it without conversion then. So for the third wire to experience no force, B1 should be equal to B2. So for that, mu naught by 4 pi 2 I1 by x equal to mu naught by 4 pi 2 I2 by 10 minus x. So mu naught by 4 pi will cancel. 2 will cancel, right? So you have 10 minus x divided by x equal to I2 by I1. So I2 by I1, the value of I2 is 6 ampere, and I1 is 12 ampere, right? I2 is 6 and I1 is 12 ampere. So this will get you half. Now this is okay, 20 minus 2x equal to x. So 3x equal to 20, is that so? 20 minus 2x equal to x. So 3x equal to 20, x equal to it is coming out 6 point something centimeter. Okay, 6.6 centimeter. 1 by 15. Yes, the result will be same only. 6.6 centimeter. Option number 6 centimeter from the first wire P. So next question number 33. Method doesn't matter. Okay, you can do it in your own way also. Question number 33. Force between two parallel current carrying wires is independent of. Now you see, that was actually force per unit length, the relation that we have derived. That was, if you remember, the relation was F equal to force per unit length equal to mu naught by 4 pi 2I1 I2 by A. Was that the relation? That was the third file or the second file? The second file, it was the third file, right? So yes, this was the relation, magnetic force between two. Sorry, yeah, this was the relation. So mu naught by 4 pi 2I1 I2 by A. This is force per unit length. So F equal to mu naught by 4 pi 2I1 I2 divided by A. So here you see it is depending on length, of course, it is depending on current, of course, and it is depending on distance of separation also. Okay, so ABC, it is not depending on radius of the wire. Okay, option number D. 34 number, a coil in the shape of an equilateral triangle of side of the triangle is given. It is suspended from its vertex such that it is hanging in a vertical plane, okay, between the pole pieces of a permanent magnet, producing uniform magnetic field of this. If a current of this value is passed through the coil, what is the couple acting? You need to find out the torque. So here the situation is like, this is the north, this is the south. So it is hanging in this manner, right? So the lengths are given. Now the current is, you can take any direction of the current, it doesn't really matter. So anyway, now the coil is in the shape of an equilateral triangle. The side of the coil or the triangle is given. Okay, so it is hanging. Okay, so between the poles of a permanent magnet and producing, this is the field value, this is the current value. Now if you consider this as the direction of the current, okay, now you see the area vector. If this is lying in this manner, then the area vector, the field lines due to this magnetic field will be from left to right, right? Isn't it perpendicular to the area vector of the equilateral triangle? That is yes. Okay, now what is the area of the equilateral triangle? That is root over 3 by 4 L square is the area of the equilateral triangle. So for torque, your relation is IAB and number of turns is 1. So IAB, current value is 10 to the power minus 2, area is root 3 by 4 into, what is the length? 2 into 10 to the power minus 2. Okay, it is given as 0.02 meters, so I am writing down 2 into 10 to the power minus 2 square, and field value is 5 into 10 to the power minus 2. That is the field value. So on calculation, this you'll get as 5 root 3 into 10 to the power minus 8. Okay, so 5 root 3 into 10 to the power minus 8. So the answer will be none of this. Okay, so I hope this is understood. Next, question number 35. Now this is on galvanometer and its conversion into ammeter and voltmeter. So you have a galvanometer of resistance G ohm and the voltage V. The value of the resistance used in series to convert it into a voltmeter of range and volt is what. So what you're doing is that you are increasing the range of the voltmeter. So you have to know one thing, that in case of a voltmeter, if you want to increase the range, okay, so for voltmeter, changing the range is directly proportional to the resistance. Like if you want to increase the range, then you have to increase the resistance of the voltmeter. But for a meter, range is inversely proportional to the resistance. Okay, these two are to be remembered. Now you see, in the first case, your galvanometer resistance is G. Galvanometer resistance is G. So the current is say Ig. In that case, the voltage V, or the potential difference V, will be equal to IR. The galvanometer resistance is G. Right? Sorry, I should say the voltmeter resistance is G, and Ig current is passing through. If Ig current is passing through, then the voltage will be Ig into G. Right? Now in the second case, you are increasing the range of the voltmeter, right? So you need to increase the resistance. So we'll put a high resistance in series with it, with the voltmeter. Okay, with the previous voltmeter. So R is the high resistance that you put here. Now the voltage range increases to NV. Clear? So NV in this case, what is the, but if you apply Ohm's law, then NV equals to Ig. Current will be same, isn't it? Series circuit it is. Current will be same as the previous. Ig into, now what is the total resistance? G plus R or R plus G. What is the value of NV? NV is NV only. What is the value of Ig from equation 1? Ig can be written as V by G, G plus R. Right, so VV cancels, you get NG equal to G plus R and R equal to N minus 1 into G. So this has to be the value of the resistance to increase the voltmeter range up to NV, okay, N times. So that is question number 35. Answer is option number B, N minus 1 into G. Question number 36. Emitter has resistance of G ohm. Now it is passing a current, or it is measuring a current of I ampere. Now you want to increase, or increase the emitter range to Ni. Okay. how would you convert, or what value of resistance would you use to convert this to an emitter of range Ni? Now you want to increase the range in case of emitter, so the resistance has to be decreased, right? So for that, if you want to decrease the resistance, you have to connect a shunt. Now you see previously, okay, so previously we can just do this with one circuit itself. You don't have to draw two circuit. When this shunt was not connected in parallel, say I current was passing through the emitter, in that case your voltage across the emitter was Ig, right? Now this is a parallel setup, therefore the voltage will be same. Now when you have converted this, or when you have increased the emitter range, then now the emitter is capable of measuring Ni current, right? So if Ni current is fed into this emitter, right, then the current is distributed as Ni minus I. Ni minus I will pass through the shunt. Now the voltage across the previous circuit, okay, that is when the emitter had only G resistance and I current was passing through it, it was Ig. Now when you have converted it, this voltage and this voltage will be same. Therefore you can write down Ig equals to Ni minus I into S. Yeah, or you can write this as I common N minus 1 into S. So S is like I cancel, and S is G by N minus 1. So that is your answer. So here option number D is the answer. The last question, I guess 37 is the last question. Yes. So to decrease the range of an emitter, now previously we were talking about increasing the range of emitter and increasing the range of voltmeter. Now you want to decrease the range of an emitter, its resistance need to be increased, of course. So if you wanted to increase the range of the emitter, we had to decrease the resistance. So we have written here that it is inversely proportional, isn't it? This for emitter range is inversely proportional to resistance. Now since you want to decrease the resistance, so resistance decrease the range, therefore resistance has to be increased. So what is the relation for shunt resistance? The relation for shunt resistance is Ig into G divided by I minus Ig, right? So Ig was the current passing through the galvanometer and I was the current passing through the emitter. Now to decrease the range, I should decrease. So you have to increase, you want to decrease range, so you have to increase the resistance shunt. So resistance S will only increase when I value decreases, right? And I value will decrease to I by N. So in such a case, what will happen? If I value decreases, then the denominator will become negative, right? If I becomes I by N, if I decreases very low, then this will become lesser than the galvanometer current also. So if this value becomes less than the galvanometer current, then your S will become negative, which is not possible. Which is not possible. Therefore, your answer is option number D. I hope all these solutions are clear, and tomorrow we'll start a new chapter. You can go through the assignment problems. Whatever confusions you have, you can send it to me. I'll look into it. Okay, thank you.